In ministering to those who are unemployed, we found that there have been vast changes in the ways that people look for work and secure them. After World War II, jobs were plentiful, and people found jobs. They often thought that they would work for the same company most of their lives and oftentimes retire from them. For many people, that has proved not to be the case. The recent economic downturn has caused many people to lose their jobs through no fault of their own. Through reorganizations, through mergers, through downsizing, many people have been let go and are now finding it difficult to find jobs. And although the job figures tell us that the unemployment rate is very low and that it's not really a problem, the figures don't actually give a complete picture. You see, unemployment figures measure those who are looking for work, but they only measure those looking for work through the normal channels. There are a large number of people who are looking through other channels and are not going through the normal channels. They're not included. In addition, there are vast numbers of people who have lost their jobs and been unable to find jobs. Many of them have simply given up and are no longer looking. They've moved in with fathers, mothers, sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, friends, anywhere to live. Although they say that the rates are very low, economists estimate that probably the actual rates are probably about twice or more those the published rates. Yet, employers are telling us that there are thousands and thousands of jobs which they cannot fill. Surely, apparently, there is a disconnect between those who are looking for work and those who are looking for workers. There are two reasons for this disconnect. One of the reasons is because there have been vast changes in the way that job openings are listed, making it very difficult to find. In the past, most people have looked through the newspapers. That's where the want ads are. Unfortunately, with the computers and so forth, fewer and fewer people are reading the newspapers. More and more employers are turning to other ways to list job listings. Another way that people oftentimes went to look for jobs is to go around to employers and go from employer to employer, looking for somebody who was hiring. If they were hiring, they applied. If not, they left a resume in case they would have a future opening. Now, many employers no longer accept resumes unless they have a job opening. Some are even not accepting resumes at all. And so it's become a dead end for many. Although those two ways are still a good place to check, anybody who depends upon them exclusively is going to find it's a frustrating and disappointing way to find work. Many employers no longer accept direct contact. In fact, employers are using a wide variety of ways. Unfortunately, it's not a matter of this and this, but rather it's a matter of this or this. Instead of broadcasting job openings over a broad area, they are being selective using this or that method, so that those seeking jobs have to look at a wide variety of ways to find a job listing. Many employers are now going to staffing agencies. They find it's much easier, because of all the applications they get, to allow the staffing agency to do the sorting for them. Many people seeking jobs are not using staffing agencies because of old misconceptions. It used to be with many staffing agencies that you had to pay up front, or once you got a job, they would take it out of your pay. In addition, many of the jobs that they got you were short-term, limited jobs. They'd be for a couple days, a couple weeks, a couple months, and then they would be over. However, the vast changes in our society today, staffing agencies have moved to the forefront. Many employers have ongoing contracts with staffing agencies to provide all of their employment. Many job seekers think that all they have to do is send in their application to a staffing agency, and the staffing agency will go out and find them a job. Unfortunately, the staffing agencies don't owe very much to their potential job seekers. Job seekers come and go, but the employers will be there forever. The employers are the ones that pay the bills. Oftentimes, the employers pay for the work, and the job seekers don't have to pay up front. As a matter of fact, oftentimes if you have to pay up front, I would be very suspect of that staffing agency. Staffing agencies look for the people that are most likely to fit the needs of the employer. They send their best quality employees. If they didn't, the employer would oftentimes go and look elsewhere. So if a potential employee has something kind of impediment, they have a poor work history, they have a disability or something that may make them a poor choice for workers, oftentimes their applications will be left behind and they may never see an employer. So potential employees have to sell themselves to a staffing agency just as if they were selling themselves to a potential employer. In addition, many staffing agencies have specialties. One may specialize in office, one in factory, one in home health care. And if you're looking for a job in home health care and you go to one that primarily serves factory work, they're normally not going to have any contacts that are going to get you a job. And so you're very unlikely to find a job. You need to find a staffing agency that deals specifically with home health care. That's where the jobs are in that field. In addition, there are now many online sources. Technology has opened many new ways to find job openings. Unfortunately, it also has muddied the waters. True, there are many online sources, but they fit into two categories. There are primary sources, which are the employers or staffing agencies that work directly with employers. Their job listings are often up to date, and when you apply to them, your application goes directly to the employer. However, there are also many consolidating agencies. They will go around to the primary sources and they will consolidate them. The primary sources are often hard to find and you have to go around to them constantly to find out if they have openings. And so it's much easier to go to the consolidating sources. Unfortunately, if you send in your application to a consolidating source, you never know whether the job application is current or not. Because they're not in contact with the constant employer, by the time they list them, they may be way out of date. Or, as it goes down from layer to layer, from agency to agency, it may never reach the employer. So the best practice is to go to a consolidating agency and find a job listing, and then find the primary source and apply directly to the employer. In addition, many companies are going to online applications. The application is entirely online. Usually it will be a fill in the blank, which means that oftentimes there is no opportunity to send in a resume or a cover letter. You simply send in a blank application. And so it's hard to get your application to stand out. Therefore, it's always good to send a application, to send a resume and a cover letter afterwards. But be sure and put on it that you've already applied online, because if not, they will just simply pitch it. The fact is that many jobs are never posted. We oftentimes think of these as mom and pop stores, who oftentimes post a little notice in the window saying, "Help wanted." However, more and more companies are going to the practice. Some will employ thousands of workers. All of their upper echelon are promoted from below. And the openings at the bottom level, they simply put a notice on the lunchroom wall, and the employees see it and they refer their sons, daughters, fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, neighbors, friends. And if you don't have a connection to somebody that works in the company, you probably will never know that the job was ever open. It makes it very difficult to find. It is estimated today that 80% of jobs are never posted. 80% of people who find jobs are referred through friends. And so it's important to have a large network of people looking for you. In addition, there have been changes in hiring practices that also make it more difficult to secure jobs once you find a job opening. When applications are sent online and you have no opportunity to do a resume or cover letter, you cannot help to show the employer your real best qualities. All they see is the black and white. In addition, many employers use quick scans. It is estimated the average employer will spend as little as 20 seconds. Some people estimate as little as 8 seconds looking over your resume. You have to make your resume somehow stand out, while at the same time not making it offensive. Many employers are now using quick scan machines, where they go through and look for keywords. Therefore, it's important to know what keywords the employer is looking for, so that you can put the keywords into your resume. But you also have to back up those keywords with facts. Because after it's pulled out by the machine, it will be scanned by a human. Increased competition makes it more difficult to find work. It used to be that if you could show that you were hardworking and that you could do the job, that you had the qualifications to do it, that's all that was needed. Nowadays, employers want you to be able to not only do the job, but to be able to do it above and beyond the normal. And so on your resume, you don't just simply say, "I worked for the Salvation Army for 13 years as a social worker." Now you have to be able to show that while you worked there, you gave some above and beyond. You received some citation, some commendation, you contributed something to the organization that bettered the organization. These are now appearing on resumes that have never appeared before. In addition, companies are looking for people who want to work for them. It's not enough to go to an employer and say, "I want a job, I'm going to work hard." Now they expect you to research the company. I'm reminded of one woman that was in our group that was talking about her experience applying for a job. She was looking for a job in sales. Her experience had been in selling glass. She saw an application for somebody looking for a salesman, and she went in, and during the discussion, the salesman asked her, "What do you know about automotive parts?" She kind of hemmed and hawed and said, "Well, not a whole lot. I'm not a mechanic. I haven't got much experience with that." End of interview. Because you see, the company sold auto parts. Had she researched the company and realized that they sold auto parts, she may have never applied, or if she had applied, she would have done her homework and found some way to be able to say, to answer to that question, "True, most of my sales experience has been in glass, but this is how my experience in selling glass will contribute to selling auto parts." In order to be able to help those who are unemployed, you also have to understand their own personal needs that hamper their job search. One of the main problems they have is that they need guidance. The old ways of looking for a job no longer work. In addition, many of those who try applying the old ways to the new technology are finding that that doesn't work either. Clearly, they need somebody to clue them in to how to find work. Also, they oftentimes need encouragement. Many of them thought that they would simply find a job fairly easily, but as they continue applying and applying and applying, and they don't get any response, they've begun to wonder if something's wrong with them. They become discouraged. In recent years, the government has been very concerned about the number of people who are having difficulty finding work. They have developed what they call the Job Club, although many of them are very limited time and could probably be more called job training classes. A recent study of older workers by the Department of Labor found that after 12 weeks, 3 months, 74% of older workers who are active in job clubs found jobs, versus only 22% of those who are not active in job clubs. Clearly, there is an advantage in having help. The limited job training classes are oftentimes used by government and commercial job search groups. One of the advantages is they provide access to experienced professionals, people who know the job market and who understand it, who can help them set goals, develop their resume, and prepare for interviews. They also provide guidance in how to use technology. Clearly, there's an advantage over employees trying to seek work on their own. However, churches have begun developing a more advanced style of job club. Job clubs that are ongoing. They meet from week to week. Of course, they're most effective if they have periodic job training courses. But ongoing job clubs provide many advantages. Number one, they provide encouragement. If you're out there pounding the pavement and never getting any response, you think there must surely be something wrong with you, why employers don't want you. But as you're with a group of other people who are fairly intelligent and hardworking people, and they're experiencing many of the same problems you have, you take courage. In addition, as they are getting jobs and leaving the group, it encourages you that there really are jobs out there and that people actually are getting work, and that hopefully you will be next. In addition, it provides you access to people who are going through the process. For instance, I'm reminded of one woman that was in our club. She went for an interview at a large corporation. She pulled into the parking lot, got out of her car, and faced a huge building complex. Where does she go? There was a man getting out of his car at the same time. She asked for directions, and he said, "I'm headed that way. I'll show you." He guided her to the place, to the elevators, rode up the elevators with her. When he got off the elevator, he said, "You just go down this hallway, and it's down there." She went her way, he went his. She thought nothing more about it. She sat in the waiting room until the receptionist called her. The receptionist then led her down the hallway, pushed open the door, and introduced her to the interviewer. Who do you expect was the interviewer? But the man she met in the parking lot. She expected that her interview would begin the minute she sat down at a desk with her interviewer. Unbeknownst to her, her interview actually began in the parking lot. That was news to a number of us, but there are a number of others in the group that echoed the same thing. That they said that they had evidence in the interview that the interviewer had talked to the receptionist and asked about their behavior in the reception room. Apparently it's fairly common. You never know, once you step on the property, when your interview begins. There are people all around you who are watching you that may have input into your job application. In addition, it gives you accountability. It's easy to let things slide and say, well, this week I'm not going to do anything. I worked hard last week. But if you have to go to your job club this week and tell them that, well, I didn't do any interviews this week, you decide, well, it's better that I keep working. In addition, it provides you with networking. There are so many jobs out there that are limited in how they are displayed. One person can do them all. When you're working with a group, you have a number of people looking for you. For instance, if I was to go to an agency and ask for a job in social work, they might tell me, no, we're not hiring social workers right now. We are looking for a receptionist, however. Well, I'm not really interested in a receptionist job. However, there is a person in my group who is looking, and I can let them know about it. They might never have heard of the job otherwise. In fact, networking is the fastest way for most people to find jobs. 80% of jobs that people get today, it is estimated, come through networking. They hear about it from a friend, neighbor, or just somebody they meet on the street. In addition, the job club gives you opportunity to improve. As you pass your resume around the group, different people look at it with different eyes. I've gone over resumes a dozen times looking for errors. Had somebody else look at it and said, did you know you misspelled this word? And I missed it, time after time after time. It just took somebody with fresh eyes. In addition, most people don't realize what kind of a presence we have online. The people in the group can look at your presence online and evaluate it and give you feedback. In addition, oftentimes the group will role play. They'll pretend that one person is the interviewer and another is the interviewee. And you get to practice, and then they switch. You can practice your interviewing skills. They can ask you the hard questions. In addition, it gives you inside contacts. As people graduate from the group, they move out into jobs. For instance, if you heard about a job at Marathon Oil, for instance, through the grapevine, but you didn't know how to apply, you remember that girl that used to be in your group that got that job with Marathon? You can call her up and ask her and say, hey, who do I talk to? Where do I send my resume? In addition, she might hear about a job and send it to the group and say, Marathon's looking for such and such a person. Is there anybody in the group that wants it? Plus the fact, if you know them well, they may be able to put a good word into you. If you send your resume in, it goes into a hard stack, it may be easily overlooked. But if you have a friend who works for the company, you can ask them if they can take your resume to the personnel person, and if they hand the resume to them personally and say, I think you ought to look at it, they're going to look at it seriously. Because there's somebody in the company who's willing to vouch for you. And they're not going to vouch for you if they don't think you're going to be a good worker. I'm reminded of a woman that was in our group one time. She saw the perfect job, the job she just loved to have. The only problem was the job notice had expired. She called the company and they were no longer taking applications. She was over to a friend of hers, talking to a friend of hers that she hadn't visited for a while, and she was saying, I saw the perfect job, but didn't pan out. It's past the deadline. The woman said, well, I'll call my husband and see what he can do. The woman said, oh really? Your husband works for that company? She said, of course. He's president of the company. She picked up the phone and said, hi dear. I've got this friend of mine that's looking for a job. Can you talk to her? He said, sure. Have her in my office at 3 o'clock. He talked to her. She looked like a good fit for the job. She got the job. What better recommendation can you have than the wife of the president of the company? But even lesser people within a company can give you a good reference, and they'll look at it seriously. There are oftentimes people in churches today that are struggling looking for work. The church has many resources that most people don't realize. For instance, the person may be sitting in the pew next to somebody who's working with a company, and they know about a job opening in that company. They just don't know that there's somebody in the congregation who's looking for work. In addition, it provides an opportunity to reach people in the community who are struggling looking for work. As they become involved with the church and become knowledgeable about it, they may be attracted to the church. So the church has many opportunities that it can minister. And so I hope that as you look at this as a possible ministry, that you'll seriously consider it. Thank you. Many people ask me, why start a program for people who are unemployed? The fact is that unemployment is, in recent years, at an all-time high. There are more people employed now than there have been in a long time. Yet the fact is that there are still many people who are looking for work. While at the same time, there are also many employers who are looking for people to work. Clearly, they're not getting together. The fact is that the ways to find jobs has changed. It used to be that you looked up the want ads in the paper, went out and put out applications. The fact is that many places no longer advertise through the newspaper, and many companies don't take applications unless they have job openings. Well, the fact is that it seems like there's a lot of programs out there for unemployed. The fact is that many of them are geared towards the old ways. Clearly, people need somebody to guide them, and they need somebody who's familiar with the new ways. One of the things that people are finding is that job clubs are an advantage where people can help each other. The fact is, 80% of people find jobs today do so through somebody they know. Somebody knows of a job opening and refers it to them, or they know of a company that they want to work for, but they don't know how to get the job there. And so by finding somebody that works in the company, they're able to get themselves in. I'm reminded of a woman that was in a job club that I was working with one time, who said that she heard about a job that looked like the perfect job for her, but when she contacted the company, they told her that the application date had closed. She was later talking with a friend of hers and lamenting the fact that she had lost the job because she didn't hear about it in time. The friend said, oh, I'll call my husband and see what he can do. The woman didn't know that her friend's husband was actually the CEO of the company that she wanted to work for. The woman called her husband. The husband said, sure, I'll give her an appointment and she can come in and do an application. The fact is that many companies also are looking for somebody, and it's hard to tell by an application how good somebody's going to be. But if you have somebody in the company that recommends them, then you know what they're going to be like. If that person is willing to recommend them, they must be good. What better recommendation can you have than the wife of the CEO of the company? Many people don't know where their friends work, where their friends' spouses work, or what they do. Yet many of them are working for companies that they are applying for. How do you start a program like that? Well, the first thing you can do is start with your congregation. Ask the people in your congregation who's unemployed. Don't just assume that you know if somebody's going to be unemployed. I'm reminded of a woman that there was a time I talked to a pastor, and I asked him, who do you know in your congregation who's unemployed? He told me, no, there's nobody in our congregation that's unemployed. Sadly, when I had come in, he was on the phone, and the secretary had said that she would contact him as soon as he was off the phone. And while we were waiting, she and I were talking. She asked what I was doing these days, and I told her I was starting a job club. And she said, that's great. My husband's been out of work for 4 months and hasn't been able to find work. She never told the pastor, even though her desk was less than probably 10 feet from his desk. The fact is, many people don't tell those in the church around them when they're unemployed because they don't think that the church does anything for unemployed people who are unemployed. And the fact is that oftentimes in congregations you'll have people sitting there who are unemployed, while at the same time there are other people in the congregation who also have are working for companies that are looking for people to work. In the congregation you have a wide number of people who work for a wide number of companies. It's an excellent place to network. Yet many people in the congregation oftentimes don't know many of the people in the congregation that well to know where they work or what they do. By having somebody in the congregation, by contacting the congregation, you can find out a lot of resources that you might not have been aware of. You can put a bulletin insert in the bulletin, put a page on your website, on your Facebook page. You can also contact other pastors and ask them if they would do the same, if they would help you by putting bulletin inserts in the bulletin, and also if they would put it on their website. In addition, advertise. Put posters in laundromats. Many times there's places, community bulletin boards in stores, libraries, other places. Any place you can get the word out. Don't just assume people are going to come to you. Ask your people, who do they know? Who do they know who are unemployed, and what companies they work for? Because it may be that somebody may be looking for work and looking for somebody that may work for one of those companies. And by getting a recommendation of somebody they know in the congregation, they can get a recommendation that will help them get that job. There's lots of things that the church can do to help people get jobs. Thank you.